In the previous lesson, we learned about the law of conservation of mass, which says that you can't just create or destroy matter. You can't make atoms out of nothing, and you can't obliterate them so they become entirely nothing. But you can change the way that atoms are bonded to one another, and in doing so, you can completely change the properties of the matter that you're dealing with. In this lesson, we're going to learn that energy does basically the same thing. Energy can't be created or destroyed, but you can change something key about energy that we're going to learn about as we study the law of conservation of energy. The wording is almost exactly the same as the wording of the law of conservation of mass. Energy can't be created, you can't make energy from nothing, and it can't be destroyed. You can't just obliterate it so it's gone. But you can change energy from one form to another, which we do all the time. Right now, using your computer, you are changing electrical energy, the energy of flowing electrons, to light energy, which is electromagnetic, and to sound energy in the speakers. You are changing one form of energy to another. That electricity that's flowing into your computer is being generated somewhere. Where I am here in Wisconsin, most of my electricity comes from burning coal. And because you're burning a fuel that's releasing chemical energy to produce thermal energy, heat, which is eventually used to spin a generator that generates electricity. Energy can be transformed from one form to another. It can't just be created, and it can't be destroyed. Let's take a look at the example we used in the previous lesson, but this time let's pay attention to the forms of energy that are involved. Here again, I have the explosive molecule in the C4 substance. Now, before we looked at what happened to the atoms of this molecule as C4 exploded, and we noticed that the atoms weren't destroyed and no new atoms were created. The atoms just changed the way that they were bonded. We're going to blow up our C4 once again. Before we do that, though, let's just note what type of energy is stored in this molecule, in the bonds between the atoms. C4 has an immense amount of chemical energy. These bonds between the atoms are stable, but they're just not very strong. And to hold bonds together that aren't very strong takes a lot of energy that can then be released as those bonds are broken and new bonds are formed. So we're going to take this C4 molecule and we're going to release its energy. We might release its energy to do something like blow up a bridge that we don't need anymore, or demolish a building. Those are two common uses for this explosive substance. When we do that, we are changing the chemical energy that is a part of the bonds between the atoms in the C4 molecules. We are changing it to different forms of energy. I want you to look at this picture. Can you pick out some of the different forms of energy that the chemical energy is being changed to? You may notice that, first of all, there's heat, there's fire. There's an immense amount of thermal energy being released as the atoms and molecules surrounding this explosion are being forced to move faster than they were before. That's the first form of energy I want you to pay attention to as we change the chemical energy in C4 to other forms. Thermal energy is produced. Another form of energy that the chemical energy in C4 changes to is sound energy. If you were standing near this bridge, you would notice there was a huge boom as the C4 exploded. And then you could hear all of the resulting sounds as the bridge collapsed. Sound energy is another common form of energy that's produced when energy changes from one form to another. Another thing that's going to happen to this bridge as it blows apart and pieces of it are launched all over the place and the whole thing collapses, mechanical energy is going to be developed from this as well. So we've got three forms of energy that relate to moving atoms that are being generated because we are converting chemical energy into these forms of energy. We're not just making these forms of energy out of nothing. We can't just make heat energy out of nothing. There has to be something fueling the heat energy. If sound energy is produced, there has to be something, some kind of energy that is being transformed into sound energy. And the same with mechanical energy. There's Another form of energy that's being produced, though, from this explosion, can you pick out the one that's missing? What about electromagnetic energy? As light is being given off, as infrared energy is being given off, there is also electromagnetic energy involved in this explosion as well. So once again, these forms of energy can't just make themselves. They have to come from other energy that already exists. And the way that we make thermal, sound, mechanical, and electromagnetic energy as we blow up this bridge, we are making all of that energy by converting the energy that was stored in the bonds of the C4 explosive. We are converting that energy to these forms of energy. No energy was lost. There's no new energy that was created. We are just transforming one form of energy to a bunch of other forms of energy. And the law of conservation of energy allows for that. We can't create or destroy energy, but we can transform energy from one type to another.